Hi, this is Chad Dumas with ReeceNichols. Certainly we're going through a crazy time right now, and we're all going through it together. One particular segment of our population that's really been affected by this is anybody that's associated with a small business. And I've been really impressed with many of our local small businesses on just what they've done to pivot, to adapt, to change, to still serve their consumers and to pay their bills, but to do so in a way that's very different than what they were doing 30 days ago, 45 days ago. And I'm going to take some time over the next couple weeks and sit down with some of these small business owners via Zoom and interview them and just find out what is it that they have done to pivot, to change their business. How is it going to change what they do coming out of the coronavirus? And then also, how can we help? How can we help right now, and how can we help in the future? Again, it's been nothing short of amazing to see how quickly many of these people have completely changed their business plan in a very short period of time, and have done so just remarkably smoothly and really not missed a beat. So with that, let's meet today's guest.
All right. Hey, everybody. My first guest is Matt Sanning with Dumas of Services. And, just a little bit about what we're doing here today, Matt, because you haven't seen one of these. There's been a lot of change, obviously, in the last 30 days, 45 days. We're kind of settled in now, but this is going to last a little while longer. And I wanted to do a video series just about Lee Summit business owners, that's about how did they pivot? How have they changed? What have they had to integrate into their business? And then I started thinking, gosh, before I get into the actual for-profit business owners, let's start with a nonprofit, and my favorite nonprofit, by the way, which is Dumas of Social Services. So I can't think of a better first person to have on to this interview than. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do with Dumas of Social Services?
Sure. Well, Chad, first and foremost, thank you for having me on. We've had a great rapport for a number of years now, all the way back even prior to 2000 when we graduated from the good high school over at.
That's right.
We
Tiger
love
Pride.
we love our new high schools, but there's a special place for that Tiger Pride. So Lee Summits has changed quite a bit over the last few years, and over the last 45 to 60 days, it's changed even more. The Zoom culture is in full force right now. Our agency has had to pivot and change some things, but Lee Summit Social Services is an emergency assistance agency. So our responsibility is to address emergency needs as they come up, so that lower income families, the disabled, kids, families with extraordinary needs have those needs addressed. And we do that in 4 different communities: Lee Summit, Lone Jack, Lake Lotawana, and Greenwood. The majority of the need, based on the population, is still in Lee Summit. But for any of those communities that need help with food, utility or rental assistance, car repair, clothing, so many other items that might push them into a situation that they're going to have more trouble getting out of, that's where we're here to help. And right now, during this COVID crisis, people out of work, some businesses that we would have considered recession-proof during the recession are not working. Offices like dental offices, so dental hygienists are not at work right now. Other offices are laying off their folks. Hopefully the stimulus packages help a little bit, but ultimately we know it's going to take a while to get the economy started again. And so we're actually pivoting in a number of different ways. 1, to keep our staff safe while we distribute all these items. And 2, it's to anticipate what kind of time frame we're looking at for when the biggest response is going to be needed. And so while there's and I know, Chad, you'll probably dig into this a little bit more, but we're still ramping up in what we anticipate to be kind of a longer term area where assistance is needed.
Yeah, I agree. And there are a lot of unknowns right now. So you hit on something there that I thought was interesting. So some of the group probably that were contributed to Lee Summit Social Services in the past, now they've found themselves in a need. How has it changed as far as the number that you're serving, pre-crisis versus right now?
So during the recession, we actually served twice the number of people that we were serving 45 days ago. We were up to about 5,000 unique individuals. 98% of those were in Lee Summit. And right now we're about, maybe touching on 3,000.
Okay.
So right now, and the interesting dynamic of what's happening right now is that a lot of the folks that are in Lee Summit that are out of work right now or lacking the income are using up a lot of their savings. They're using up what has been in the bank accounts. And so, for the frontline workers, let's talk about fast food or a lot of the blue collar industries. They're still either working and maybe haven't seen the full brunt of this impact, other than maybe some supply line shortages. But some of those other families that were two household incomes families, they're using their savings right now because they've never used assistance programs, and they may not either know or be comfortable using that, so they think they can get through this. Add on top of that the stimulus checks that just hit, and people are using that money to purchase the items that they needed that maybe they couldn't get before. And so we've seen a small tick up. I think last week alone we had 160 client visits last week, which is a little higher than normal, but nothing that we can't handle. And so we believe that depending on how long these folks are out of work and what kind of stimulus packages are in the hopper and what we're going to be able to do for businesses, that's really going to dictate whether or not we're on the 5,000 person end or we're closer to the 3,000 person end. And so we're preparing for the 5,000 because we hope for the best but prepare for the worst, in anticipation that we're going to be needed primarily in June and July when it comes to the utility, the rental, the mortgages, because these folks right now can opt for a deferral in certain areas, and you real estate guys know more about that. But I know with rent and utilities, they've offered a time frame where they can that can be deferred, but those are all going to come due at some point. And so those families may not be reaching out to us up front, and so they're going to wait for these bills to stack onto each other for 3 months, and then we're going to have to make a decision using those finances and using what's available and whether or not they're back at work as to what kind of response we as an agency need to have to make sure they can stay in their home for another 30 days and hopefully much longer.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I wish someone had a crystal ball and could tell us how long this thing was going to last, But June, July, August, that time frame, that also coincides with one of my favorite events that you guys generally run, and that's the back to school drive. We've participated with you several years on that.
Yes.
That, and then my other favorite event, which is hopefully by December that we are well past this, but the angel tree and the Christmas store. So talk through a little bit. Social distancing very well might still be in effect by then. And then in the past, that's an event that you've had, one family on top of another and volunteers on top of other volunteers, really kind of assisting with that. Mm-hmm. If those events were to occur today, for example, in this type of climate, how would you have to kind of manage through that?
So I think it's going to depend on what the health department allows us to do, first and foremost. Right now, we distribute food under a plexiglass barrier to keep that 6-foot distance. And we've been spacing our appointments out enough so that we are allowed to have the social distancing. We've limited our volunteers in the agency, and primarily it's just staff right now. And so if we go into the May time period where we're planning for that back to school, we may have to start 3 weeks earlier and go 3 weeks longer prior to school starting, assuming everything's back on track, and do individual appointments with individual groups of people to make sure that there's no more than 10 in the room. I assure you that even if we're packing those backpacks and putting the jeans and the coats inside of those backpacks, we are going to make sure that all the families get served to the best of our ability. We've already had one of our major funders for the back to school and Christmas program say, we are going to continue to fund you. If you need those funds for something else, you can do that, but we would want to see these programs move through. So when we have to buy those back to school items, the ones that we can't get donated, we will make sure that the backpacks are created at a worst case scenario. We'll deliver them to those homes if we have to, and we'll need a volunteer presence. But until we get guidance from Jackson County and we kind of see how things lighten up, we obviously don't want to bring any health risk to anyone. And the economic climate is going to be a factor in how we do this. I think that right now, a lot of our volunteers are absolutely chomping at the bit to get back out and to do this. And so our volunteers are the ones that are going nuts right now because they can't serve in the capacity that they did before. Now, in some agencies, some entities, they can, but because we work it within the parameters that we do, our volunteers have kind of been limited. So a lot of calls, they want to get back. So my hope is that at the end of or at the start of June, that we're planning this and moving forward. And maybe we start this as early as July 1 to start distribution, but on a smaller, fewer people at a time in the office. Now, the holiday program in December, that's going to be a toughie if we have any of these parameters still in place. So we'll do the same thing. We'll limit the appointments, and with 500 to 700 kids coming through that program, it will be drawn out by quite a bit. For the families that don't want to go out, we'll deliver the gifts to them. We are going to do our absolute best to make sure that nobody goes without the things that they need to take care of those kids.
That's awesome, man. So while some of the rules have changed, certainly, and while you mentioned volunteers are chomping at the bit, I can speak for our office. We're chomping at the bit. We want to help. So talk a little bit about how can we help right now? How can the people watching this help, even if it can't be in person?
Sure. Well, I think most people are still going to the store at some point, either during the week or a couple times a month. If you have an opportunity to pick up one of our needed items, which is out on our website, lssocialservices.com, we're showing a list of needs, and that's based on the day or the week. And if you're going to get one for yourself, get an additional one. Put it in a sack, and if you want to go out and drop it off, we have a drop-off point in front door. If not, we'll actually come pick it up from you, and we're happy to do that. Again, we have a place for some volunteers, and some of them are in a truck and picking up stuff off of a curbside or a patio side delivery. But we also deliver to clients that are homebound right now as needed. So we have people in trucks as often as needed. And then, we obviously love financial donations. I don't think you'll ever hear of a nonprofit saying we couldn't use the cash. That will allow us to do a lot of different things. But food donations are a little bit tougher for us because of the supply line changes. And so if we want toilet paper, which apparently everybody in this world wants right now, I actually emailed Cottonelle and gave them the old college try, and they said, talk to your retailer. So, if you get your hands on those and you can spare them, toilet paper, PB&J, things like diapers, we will take all of that because we can't necessarily go out and get those as needed. And so we found that our strength is in the community and casting that wide net where people go out and they're going to grab a couple for themselves and a couple for the agency. And that goes a long way to making sure that our pantry continues to meet the needs of our clients.
Yeah. So with the kids having to be at home, instead of at school right now, I imagine that you have a need for, you mentioned peanut butter and jelly, mac and cheese, kind of kid friendly items. I got to think, my kids are eating this out of the house right now. That's for sure. And I got to
microwavable stuff is the safest thing. Anything with a butter knife is safe. But yeah, peanut butter, jelly, mac and cheese, canned meats, packets of tuna, things like that. Those are all really helpful. And we've got bread here. The grocery store's been really generous on the bread. Eggs and milk we can always use. But if you have an opportunity and you see a supply, we've gotten some really random things here lately, and it's a lot of fun to look at. Jars of cherries, that surprises a family. Just maraschino cherries, make your Shirley Temples at home. It's a little surprises. I know that my kids are at home and they're experiencing a world that looks completely different. I know that my daughter loves to be in the pool 5 days a week, and that hasn't been an option. So she's restless. So she's starting to bake cookies and bake bread, and she's enjoying it. And I think a lot of families are finding alternative ways to entertain, and maybe it's not always in front of the TV, which is a healthy thing. And so we want to make sure that they have the resources at home to explore some of the culinary delights and, hopefully just get through this time and get back to normal as soon as possible.
No doubt. Hey, in case someone wanted to drop off items or even a check, are there certain hours? Do they need to have an appointment, for one thing, to drop items off? And then secondly, are there certain hours where they can just drop off?
Never an appointment to drop things off. We keep a donation bin out front. So if you do come after hours, a lot of people are still working the 9 to 5s. We're open from 9 to 4 every day. And sometimes it fluctuates, but on Wednesdays we close at noon. So if you happen to come in before or after that time, our donation bin out front of our building at 108 Southeast 4th Street is absolutely available. It's got a donation thing at the very top. And so you just pop that hinge open and put them in the barrel, and we'll greatly appreciate it. If it's a financial donation, we have an envelope drop in our front door. that you can use. And if you come in during business hours, right now we keep a few bins outside so that we maintain social distancing. I will tell you the toughest thing for me is not being able to offer a handshake or a hug or have a conversation at a closer distance. Chad, I imagine you're the same way. We are creatures of habit, and part of that and the relationships that we have been disrupted just because we can't interact the same way. But if you would excuse us and our adherence to the social distancing, we greatly appreciate those, and we will acknowledge you as closely as we can and get those into circulation as quickly as possible.
Sure. One thought I had as you were talking about the groceries, my wife and I, my family, we're really trying to avoid the grocery store as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
Going only when we have to, or we're in masks, we're following all those guidelines. But we're using services like Instacart to deliver groceries and so forth. Let's say that I wanted to order from Hy-Vee or Price Chopper or Whole Foods or wherever and use Instacart. Could we have those delivered straight to you?
Absolutely. And if it's during business hours, you don't even have to, tell us you're arranging it. It just comes in. If it's after hours, you can always reach out to me, and we could have staff up here on a Friday or a Friday night or a Saturday or Sunday, or even after hours. We'd like to get our staff home and back with their families, but we will take anything we can get. So if we need to work around your schedule, you can reach out to us on Facebook or our website, or email me, matt@ellisocialservices.com. And we'll make sure to accommodate your schedule to the best of our ability, because that's something that we wouldn't have otherwise had. So we'll make ourselves available. And I think it's a great idea.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for everything that you and your organization do for our city. You are the heartbeat of our city in a lot of ways, and you definitely fill a need year round. But it's always so much more important, it feels like, during these type of times. And there's a lot of people struggling out there. There's a lot of people watching this who aren't used to struggling, who are now struggling. And just thanks for everything that you do to remain a positive force in our community. And just really thank you. And it's always been so great partnering with you on different things, and can't wait till we can do that again. So
you and your team have always been great, and we're grateful for you and bringing awareness to the community. We're not gonna be doomsayers. We're gonna be positive. We're gonna get through this. We're gonna be stronger for it. The relationships, even through Zoom, are gonna make for long-lasting and strong relationships throughout this community. The cool thing is, Lee Summits, Greenwood, Lone Jack, and Lake Lottawanna are showing exactly what they're made of and why we're so strong today, because of the support network that we have, and we are grateful for you as well. So thank you very much for that.
Thanks, Matt. And hey, for everybody watching this, I'm going to put the contact information down below this post. And so you can have the address. I know Matt shared it earlier, but if you wanted to drop those items off anytime, they're available. I'll put all the contact information there. And this is a year-round need. This certainly isn't just a COVID-19 need. This is something that well after this is all over with, Lee Summit Social Services will still be serving our community, and so they can always use your donations. Thanks again, Matt. Thanks for being the first guest, man.
Thanks for having me, Chad. I really appreciate it. Thanks for everything you do, and I hope you have a great rest of the week.
You too, man. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.